Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Balancing the Books. I am a tax accountant who absolutely loves to read, and one of my favorite series right now is the Empyrean series, and so we're going to be talking about my absolutely insane, crazy, unhinged theories that I have after reading this book. I've now read it twice. I have gone down a whole whirlpool of thoughts. I have been spiraling. If you know the meme of the guy where he's at like the whiteboard and has all the red lines and the map and all of that, that's what I was like trying to prepare for this video. But I have organized my thoughts into my notebook. I have my coffee. And this is my Fourth Wing coffee mug that I use every day to get through tax season. And so with that, let's get into this video. Now I'm gonna start off by talking about my theory with Jack Barlowe, and then get into talking about the king and my theory with him, talk about my theory related to venin. I'm talking about my theories related to the dragons and the gods and geography, and of course also talking about Xaden, Violet, Terrence, Sigale, and this mysterious new brother as well. There will be lots of spoilers. If you haven't read the book, now is your time to click off. And with that, let's get into it. This will probably get broken up into multiple parts in editing because the chances of me filming it in a normal amount of length is pretty slim to none. So with that, let's get into it. All right, so let's talk about Jack Barlowe for a second. And this guy, first off, we think he dies in book 1. He comes back in book 2. We see him at the very end of book 2 and at the very beginning of book 3. He's still alive at the end of book 3, which means he's going to be in book 4. This is a more important character, I think, because of the way that we're able to use him to gain information, to gain insights, to gain understanding, and that is really important. He's a very good minor villain to help move the plot along and to help develop things that otherwise we would not see. Now, one thing that I don't think that he is Violet's half-brother. There's this crazy theory out there that Papa Sorrengail either had an affair, and like I've heard this and this is insane, had an affair with Jasenia's mother years ago, like way before he met Lilith, and that they had this secret love child, which would make no sense because he's been with Lilith for a very long time. They have older children. There's another theory that he cheated on Lilith at the same time that he's having a kid with Lilith, who he obviously loves. I don't think that that's in any way, shape, form, or fashion a possible outcome. That makes no sense. Jack is a hateful person who saw Violet as weak and therefore wanted to kill her. The same reason that he killed the guy who was behind him on the parapet. Like, this dude's just unhinged. He doesn't hate Violet because she's his half-sister. But I do think that Jack knows a lot more than what we have necessarily been shown. I think that there is a reason that the venin were trying to break him out, particularly because it's a very high level person who's trying to break him out. And like Riddick mentioned, it seemed like this had already happened a couple of times. That, like, he obviously knows something. And I keep going back to the part in book 1 at Threshing, and let me give you the exact quote because I have it written down because I did my research on this. On page 154 in Fourth Wing, he says, "You know Feathertails are useless in combat. They refuse to fight." Violet then in her head responds, "No one knows anything about Feathertails, so I don't know where he's getting his information." Now, during the tour, Rebecca has said that, you know, people do know of the existence of Feathertails, they just think that they don't bond. But what if Jack actually does know more? She didn't deny that Jack could know more. And Rebecca has said things before in interviews and in press things that could potentially lead you one way or another, depending on how you interpret it. And so I don't think that this is a flat out denial that Jack knows some stuff about Feathertails. And I think that the venin were either trying to break him out to see what he knows, or that they were trying to prevent his knowledge from getting to the Navarians, because they didn't know how he'd hold up under torture. Now, the other thing that someone said was that, oh, like, they just want him for his knowledge of Violet and Xaden and the War College. No, like, they've got plenty of people in their ranks to give them that information. They also very clearly, Xaden and the Sage have a connection, and so the Sage knows things about Xaden. Also, Theraphine knows a lot about Violet, and so this is one of those things where I don't think that that's the reason. I think that there's more to it, and I think that we will find out what that more to it is in book 4. Rebecca also said during the tour that even Jack has his reasons for turning venin, and even he has his backstory that doesn't necessarily justify his actions, but does explain them. And I wonder if we will get more of Jack's backstory when we learn why he's important to the venin and why it is that the venin are wanting to break him out so badly. Now, this next really important piece of information links my theory with Jack knowing more than what he's saying to my theory with the king and with his family. And this is where I get a little crazy. I came up with this at like 11:30 p.m. one night, and so I fully recognize that it is possible that this is just way too far out there and I went way down the rabbit trail. And as I was explaining it to a friend prior to filming this video, I realized, okay, maybe this is a little crazy, but I still really like it, so I'm putting it in this video. So Jack tells Violet that the sages and the mavens, that they can hide in plain sight. But we haven't seen that happen yet. Now, granted, he says that they could fill up the hall and no one would even know that they were venin. So there are a couple of different possibilities here. One, they're using runes to describe themselves as other people, or they're using runes to hide the veining and the red eyes and all of that that we typically see. But there is another creature that we have seen hide in plain sight, and that is the Irids. The Irids are able to change their appearance to hide in plain sight. What if there is a connection between the venin and the Irids? We've seen the venin with their interactions with Andarna be just so in awe of her, so amazed by her. What if the Irids and the venin have a connection? What if there is a connection between the very first venin and the Irids? Or what if they have taken their blood? What if they have taken shells from their hatchlings and used that to make a covering or to craft a rune on? Maybe they've somehow found a way to craft runes on Irid scales, and that would allow them to hide in plain sight. Now here's where I get a bit crazy. What if there is a very high-ranking Navarian who, unknown even to himself, is a descendant of a venin? The Irids tell Violet that there is no cure for venin, but perhaps their children over time could evolve. Remember that now that Xaden is venin, he is unable to control his anger and his wrath and can snap in a second. Remember who else is unable to control their anger and snap in a second? Halden. Also, we know from, at least from Xaden's perspective, that Alec, the twin brother of Halden who went into the Rider Squadron, who Xaden killed during threshing, that he was unhinged. And we know that the venin are unhinged. What if the king's line is descended from venin, and the only one who has managed to evolve enough is Eric, and that is why he is so calm, while he is so just level-headed, that is reached the point where the king's line has finally evolved from the venin in Eric. Because I think that Eric might end up becoming king. He has the presence, he has the ability, he has the training. He would make a great king. Also, Eric is now my new favorite book boyfriend. I absolutely love him. But one more piece of evidence to fit into this. Remember the epigraph from Markham, where he is describing Finn Ryerson's final days. And here's what he says in that epigraph. He accused King Tauri and all who came before him of a conspiracy so vast, so unthinkable, that it does not bear repeating. We've been assuming that that conspiracy was Navarre covering up the information about Venin and Wyvern, and covering up that they were turning away from war citizens, and covering up all of this related to the war. But what if that's not the end of it? What if it is so vast that the king's line is descended from venin. That is the real reason why the king always wants to have eyes on Xaden. And that is the reason venin are now coming back after 600 years, because they know the line has finally fully evolved and they are going to lose control. That is the true conspiracy going on, is that Navarre is already ruled by venin descendants. Now, not venin. I'm not saying that he is an active venin. I'm not saying that he is actively evil. But what if that's where his line comes from? It could get interesting, because that's someone who would be hiding in plain sight, who potentially the venin will have access to, because we were told that they're able to sense each other, that they're probably able to communicate with each other. And so because of that, what if the venin are able to see what the king is seeing? And that's part of how they have become so effective. And that's where I'm going to end part 1. Part 2 is going to go up probably either Tuesday or Wednesday, and then I will have part 3 going up on Saturday. So with that, make sure that you have hit that red subscribe button to see where I'm going next when I'm talking about my theory with the Irids, the gods, and geography related to the Isles.